Oh, a very Merry Christmas from the Move the Sticks family to your family as we close in on the first games of week 17 in the NFL. Netflix is back, and boy, do we have a terrific duo on Netflix before finishing up on Prime Video. We'll start with the Netflix doubleheader, which begins in Washington, Dallas. So it's Cowboys and Commanders renewing that NFC East rivalry, two teams whose playoff hopes are long gone, but that rivalry always plays, and that's going to be a great one to start on Netflix. And then it'll be the Lions and the Vikings clinging to playoff hopes. There are the Detroit Lions, and that will be the second game there on Netflix. And then we'll close out with the Prime Video. So the typical Thursday nighter will be the Broncos and the Chiefs. And it's strange to talk about the Broncos as the playoff team of note in that matchup with the Chiefs now eliminated, but Broncos despite the loss to your Jaguars this past week, Bucky, in a pretty good spot. So Red Lewis, Bucky Brooks, ready to rock and roll here. Let's start, go chronologically here with the first game of the day, Cowboys Commanders. I think this is an interesting one, listening to Jerry Jones talk about, what happened last week and so far this season, saying the team has underachieved. I don't know if I agree with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like Shotty's done an incredible job with all that he's been dealt there with personnel. For one thing. Now defensively, I think they've probably, they've underperformed. I don't know if they've underachieved. How do you see it?
I felt like Brian Schottenheimer did one of the best coaching jobs of anybody in the league with all the things they're tasked with. Like, remember, not only from a personnel standpoint, they trade Michael Parsons like on the eve of the season. They then have to deal with a death of a prominent player in Marshawn Nealon. And they're trying to figure out how to integrate all these pieces on offense while breaking in a new defense that completely flipped at the line of scrimmage in terms of Quinnen Williams coming in, Kenny Clark, all the stuff that they're doing. And you have Trayvon Diggs, who was a multiple-time Pro Bowler, who has been in and out the lineup. And when he's been in the lineup, he's had a tough time playing at a high level. I know like Jerry Jones might want to blame that on coaching, but I don't know if this roster was better than the record that they've achieved. I feel like they're right at what the potential of the roster would give you, because offensively, they've done everything. 1,000-yard rusher, 2,000-yard receivers, 4,000-yard passer. I don't know what else they could do.
Yeah.
Schottenheimer's done a really good job there. And defensively, I just don't know if they had enough horses to be a really good defense.
Well, they certainly beefed up the interior of the defense now moving forward. I mean, these were trades that were not just rentals, right? I mean, Quinnen Williams, you spend that kind of capital, you're gonna figure out, and then you get the contract all worked out there. Kenny Clark, we'll see what happens with that one moving forward. But they've got the first round picks now and the draft resources. It feels like, I know they did spend some, to bring Quinnen in to continue to beef this thing up, right? I mean, obviously you got to figure out what to do with George Pickens. And how to keep harnessing that talent, right? And then, CD had a kind of a weird kind of up and down year, I'll say, right? The drops were a thing, and, availability was a thing, but, when available, when healthy, he's one of the very best. We know that. So I think give that team another year. I don't know. Maybe there's a change at the coordinator spot on defense. I don't know, but I think they got to continue to get more edge rush, more pass rush ability, and maybe they can do that in the draft.
Yeah, offensively, look, they're loaded, man. They're exactly what they hit. I think Shotty has done a really good job, not only of running that offense, but of leading the team.
Sure.
And look, you know him really well. I know him well through his dad, but he is a much better head coach than I ever can imagine. And I think if you ask people that have been around him when he was an OC, I don't know if many would envision him having the kind of command and the kind of EQ to be the head coach that he looks like he is going to be. Yeah, they got to fix the defense, but one thing that I know, they always do a pretty good job in the draft of finding the pieces. It's just a matter of stylistically, do they want to play the Matt Eberflus style, which is very similar to what they had with Rob Marinelli and other guys, but do they want to be more aggressive? And if they do want to be more aggressive, it's a matter of getting the right pieces in the back end to do what they want to do philosophically on defense.
Yeah. And as it plays now against Washington, it felt like maybe the Commanders were a little bit ahead of schedule in Jaden Daniels' rookie year. Now, his availability was a big part of the downturn this year for Washington. I think they've got to figure out, their running back spot. They've got to figure out, probably continue to work on that offensive line. Obviously, they figured out the Terry McLaurin thing, but is Deebo Samuel around for good? Like, where do they need to go to make this game? If we see this game in Week 17 next year, like a battle for the top of the NFC East.
Man, it's such a weird thing, right? So everything that went right for the Commanders last year went wrong this year.
Yeah.
Injuries hurt them. It was a veteran-laden team. They made upgrades that we thought on paper. Deebo Samuel coming over. They had a few other veterans that they picked up that they thought would help them pop. I mean, look, Marshawn Lattimore that they traded for last year, we thought he would be a mainstay in the secondary. And those things haven't worked. So now it's not necessarily a cultural reset, but I think they have to dig into the draft and development movement and get those guys going. And let's be honest, if the quarterback is healthy and playing well, some of the issues that popped up are probably masked by his talent. They just had didn't have a lot of good fortune when it came to Jaden Daniels. And I think that's kind of the trickle-down effect of his lack of availability hurt their production and hurt their ability to maybe mask some of the things that plagued them this season.
Yeah, so that's how we'll start the Christmas Day doubleheader on Netflix, 1:00 Eastern time kick, Cowboys and Commanders. Always a great rivalry. I remember being a part of it, when my dad was with Steve Spurrier with Washington for those 2 years, and it was always kind of, those weren't playoff years for Washington, but it was always fun when the Cowboys came to town, and that's a great Christmas Day matchup. Okay. Let's get to this second game here of the day, and that's the Lions visiting the Vikings. This was a division where it felt like these two teams, would be right up there in terms of fighting for the division crown, which now certainly feels like is sitting squarely in the Chicago Bears' hands at this point. And it's going to be a stretch at this point for the Lions to just make it to the playoffs. Which is kind of crazy. The Lions' only path to the playoffs is to win both of their next two games and have the Packers lose both of their next two games. That's slim. And obviously, we're not really talking about the Vikings here at this point. So how do you see this matchup as it pertains to the Lions trying to stay alive?
Well, I think if you're Dan Campbell, I think you can make a reasonable case to your team. Hey, guys, we win the next two. It could break in our favor with the injuries that the Packers are having to deal with. Jordan Love with a concussion, Michael Parsons going out, other guys going out. There is a realistic chance that we can get this done. I think the Packers played the Baltimore Ravens, and I can't remember who they finished with.
Yeah, Ravens and Vikings is who they finish with.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's an opportunity. And the only thing that the Lions can control is what's right in front of them. And so if they take care of business, they are a scary team. But I will say this about the Lions. So much change and turnover caught up with them. Not only with the coaching staff, like the coordinators kind of moving around, Ben Johnson leaving and what he had on that offense, Dan Campbell eventually having to take over play calling duties. Defensively, they're still adapting and adjusting to Kelvin Shepard, but they've had injuries that have kept them. That said, if they're able to somehow sneak in the back door, they have played a bunch of competitive games against the top teams. And when you can wipe the slate clean as the 7 seed, there are a lot of good things that could happen for them. So if you're Dan Campbell, you're just trying to lock in and, hey, let's do what we need to do to knock off the Vikings. The Vikings, we don't even know. Max Brosmer, is he going to be the quarterback? Is it J.J. McCarthy? Like, whatever that is, there could be advantages for them depending on which quarterback lines up, because J.J. McCarthy hurt his hand last week when it hit the helmet.
Yeah, that was the latest ailment. X-rays were negative, but we'll see where that ends up here. It is a tight turnaround, so maybe we do see Max Brosmer for another start, get a chance to show more of what he's capable of. It is kind of cool to see Kevin O'Connell talk about the success that they had late, right? They're starting to kind of find it together. Mm-hmm. I mean, O'Connell talking about it's just been a blast coaching him, seeing the growth of a young player, getting the opportunity to go out there and grow and develop. And so proud of the way he's played these last few weeks, really shown growth. So obviously they'd love to have him 2 straight home games to finish the season for the Vikings and big ones here against divisional foes. So we'll see how that ends up with the Lions, and then they'll finish with the Packers. So that's Lions, Vikings, 4:30 Eastern time. That is game 2 of the triple header, but the final game of the Netflix twofer to open the Christmas Day slate. We'll finish with the Broncos and the Chiefs. Chiefs are eliminated from playoff contention. Who's going to play quarterback?
I mean, I think they signed Shane Buechele.
Golly, he's been with them before, so there's some familiarity there. But
of Texas lore, but if
yeah,
I will say this, having watched their defense up close, and I know the Broncos lost to the Jags, but it is not an enviable position for Shane Buechele to have to start against that defense. Not only with the pass rush, but with the sticky coverage. If you have Kansas City Chiefs guys on your fantasy thing, you may want to sit them down, given their quarterback situation. It's going to be tough. But for the Broncos, this is the perfect storm. They lose a game that probably allows Sean Payton to refocus the team. They're playing a wounded animal in the Kansas City Chiefs where they can go and kind of knock them around and get back on track. I would expect to see the Broncos play very well in a short week where they want to get back on track and get that nasty taste out of their mouth.
Yeah. Chris Oladokun was the quarterback who came in for Minshew when Minshew got hurt there. So we'll see if they roll with Oladokun or if they do roll out Shane Buechele, who they signed off the practice squad of the Buffalo Bills. Buechele was with them in 21 and 22. So that's kind of where Casey is. But for Denver, this is really a state of the Broncos, right? First adversity they've faced in the last 12 weeks in terms of a loss, an L in the loss column. And it was your Jaguars that get it done. The way they were rolling early, I thought, Bo Nix and Cortland Sutton were going to have an epic day. Like they were in sync. And then, figured out, how to kind of slow that roll a little bit. And Trevor Lawrence took over again. What was your takeaway from watching the Broncos in person?
Really good team.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit of a perfect storm. They had a turnover on a mesh with Bo Nix that gave the Jaguars some life. And then later in the game, the Jags did a better job of slowing him down. But I'm going to say this, Rhett. Bo Nix has exceeded anything that I ever thought that he would be as a pro. Anyone who watched him first at Auburn, then at Oregon, you felt like there was a kind of a cap on what he could be. And I'm sitting here telling you right now, and looking at Bo Nix, I think there's a path for Bo Nix to be a top 7 player. I think eventually under Sean Payton, he can be a top 5 quarterback. Man, his athleticism, his accuracy and anticipation, and just his overall thing. I'm not saying he's Drew Brees. You can see the appeal that Bo Nix has.
Just say it. Just go say it. Just say it.
I can see why he was appealing to Sean Payton because his IQ, like his toughness, his athleticism, he brings a lot to the table. And they're just kind of beginning to figure it out because remember, they were in salary cap hell, purgatory. And they're still playing with a bunch of young guys doing it. When they shed that, man, this is a really good team. I mean, a really, really, really good team.
Yeah, so 2 divisional matchups here for the Broncos to close things out in Kansas City, and then they'll close it out at home against the Chargers. As it currently stands for the Broncos, they are the number 1 seed, right? They are guaranteed a spot in the playoffs at this point, but they have not yet clinched the AFC West division title. And if they fall here to Kansas City and they go to 12-4, you've got the Chargers sitting here at 11-4. They go to 12-4, and that game in Week 18. We'll decide it. Again, that's just a scenario. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but that'll get you focused up for playing a non-playoff team pretty quickly, and a team probably playing a practice squad quarterback in the Chiefs. That'll get you focused up pretty quick.
Well, I think regardless of whether, because what are they sitting at? They're sitting at 12 wins, 12-3.
The Broncos are currently 12-3. Chargers are 11-4.
So even if they win, because the Chargers knocked them off early. The Chargers probably can swipe the division in that Week 18 matchup if they win the game.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So regardless of whether they win or lose, like Week 18 is whatever. If you're Sean Payton, you want to make sure you go into Week 18 rolling.
That's a good point. So looking at the divisional matchups here, in the division, the Chargers are 5-0 in the division. So they're going to have that one. They've got the Broncos have the common opponents tiebreaker. And then the Chargers have a better conference record. They are 8-2 in the conference right now. Broncos are 7-3. But if they, so I mean, there's a lot of
play for.
Variables and a lot to play for. That's the moral.
And typically in these games, the more motivated team wins.
Oh yeah,
right. So you have the Kansas City Chiefs right now. We can make vacation plans. Honey, where we going? Are we going to Cancun? Where are we going? The Bahamas? Like, where are we going for vacation or whatever? Meanwhile, the Denver Broncos are trying to load up and worry about the playoff tickets and what seeding can we get the bye week and those things. And normally
Yeah.
Those teams a lot, particularly on a Christmas day, it's the end of Christmas.
Well, but yeah, I mean, like nobody though. That's the thing. That's a great motivator though on all these holiday games. Is nobody wants to go home to the family and be in, the Grinch, right? Because you lost. You know what I mean?
But Red, you're the last game.
Yeah, you're not doing much with the fam. It's over. Yeah, we're done with it.
Done everything. Yeah.
But I think about that a lot. Like for the Cowboys who play every year on Thanksgiving, and then they're playing the first game here on Christmas Day, although they're on the road. But the game finishes at 4:30. You get home, 6:30. You might have a dinner. You might have a dinner at the house, but like, is it going to be a happy dinner or is it not going to be a happy dinner? But that's the tough one.
But for the Chiefs, it's bad. Cold and
it's kind of
no playoff bonuses.
Yeah,
but the morale is low. The morale is low in the building. like
shoot
for a team that's not great.
Tough one. All right, Buck, that's your Christmas Day slate. They're a triple header, so great way to keep you company. It's going to be raining out here in Southern California, so great day to sit around and watch ball on Christmas Day all day long. And then we've got our NFL Network exclusive game that's coming up on Saturday that I'm pretty fired up for, doing some of the pregame coverage for that one, which will be the next day, right? One of the next kickoffs of Week 17. Once the Broncos Chiefs finish up, that's the Texans and Chargers. And that is an NFL Network kickoff. So fired up for that one. I mean, that's huge, right? Just we're talking about the Broncos.
That's a great game.
Right. It leads right into the next one, which is the two hot teams, right? I mean, Texans and Chargers. Texans have been really streaking, although barely got by the Raiders this past week, which was kind of interesting. But so fired up for that one as well. So a lot to come here for the rest of the week. We'll have the best of Move the Sticks coming up on Christmas Day. You'll hear from Brian Hartline on Friday. There's a lot on the way, so stick it right here on Move the Sticks. DJ will be back with us here coming up in the next couple of days as well. So for Bucky Brooks, I'm Rhett Lewis. Merry Christmas, everybody.